I know that shock mounts are not designed for this microphone. I have another handle, but I am going to make this work. There you go. Engineering at its finest. This problem is not going away anytime soon. It is not a Vegas Pro only problem, it's a universal one. And no matter how many disclaimers, articles, or developer commentary is made on this subject, it keeps coming back. We're talking about every timeline's worst nightmare: variable frame rate. So, there are reasons to like VFR. They're great for streaming. They allow poorly equipped devices to shoot decent videos, and although this is not exclusively true for VFR, they do allow you to shift scenes between slow and fast momentums, which is great for action and most certainly desired by gamers. Software with basic video creation capabilities like PowerPoint also tend to rely on VFR, and these cameras shoot in VFR, but with the caveat of actually converting them to constant frame rates later. You get to choose the frame rate that they shoot with so you can produce slow-mo effects. As for the issue of VFR, why it's so troublesome, is a fairly logical problem. When the frame rate of any footage increases or decreases at a variable frame rate, the question becomes, what happens to the speed of the audio? For humans, it's a fairly obvious thing. The video slows down, the audio stretches. The video speeds up, the audio speeds up. Not the same with timelines. Timelines don't find it so obvious because they're configured to run with filming logic. Thus, they expect constant frame rates and constant audio tempos. Thus, when you import variable frame rate footage, it shouldn't surprise you to see both audio and video out of sync. It also shouldn't surprise anyone that this timeline, as it attempts to maintain this precarious balancing act while figuring out how to communicate this to your hardware, ends up crashing. Premiere Pro in 2018 really tried to address this issue. They saw this as a market need that they could fill. They came up with a solution that remains problematic to this day, far from perfect. Ask any Premiere seasoned editor who deals with bulks of variable frame rate. The answer is still going to be, just get it out of the way and transcode. In fact, ask any editor of any flagship editing software that you are familiar with. This is why Handbrake is such a celebrated tool. Heck, it's free. Now, ideally, and since most of folks who deal with VFR are gamers, you would think that the solution for, let's say, 100 frame rate variable footage is that you convert them into a constant frame rate where it exhibits a solid number that doesn't bounce up and down during their playthroughs, and then they can apply their velocity edits there and then, right? The real issue is with those gamers who are performance maximalists. Personally, I'm out of touch, but as far as I can tell, the sweet spot for the hardcore market is usually between resolutions of 1440, 2K, 4K, with frame rates between 144 for competitive games and 120 for AAA games. So it takes a very precarious and a lot of trial and error arrangements to record peak performance. A AAA game is already taking up a lot of resources in the gamer's machine. So running a recording software in the background is a cause for a lot of concern, especially as gaming performance itself isn't consistent. You're talking about an environment that constantly shifts, and with newer engines today, performance isn't exactly consistent because there is just more tasking involved when it comes to hardware, and that involves a lot more computations. And those computations themselves don't remain consistent when you consider the fact that drivers are being constantly updated and Windows itself is being constantly updated, which could make or break matters. I think you get the point by now. Now, consider all of this while adding the fact that these guys are streaming. They are streaming their recorded gameplay. Something's got to give. If a 4K gameplay of, say, Indiana Jones at the moment ends up averaging at 60 frame rates per second, but a scene pops up where the game lowers itself to 48, the advice would be to just convert the footage to a constant of 30 or 40 frame rates per second, right? That would make sense to us. Unfortunately, industry standards and viewer expectations aren't so forgiving. However, until editing software developers implement comprehensive solutions, possibly leveraging AI, compromises remain necessary. Something has to give in the workflow, whether it's conversion time, final quality, or editing flexibility. Something's got to give until a developer in any of the major editing flagships comes up with a one-stop-all solution for this problem.